Welcome to r/Pettyrevenge, where no revenge is too small. I was a server for a while at an Italian restaurant. A group of teenagers came in, very clearly a sports team of some kind. I don't expect much in the way of a tip from them because teenagers, but that's never stopped me from giving good service. They're rowdy AF, constantly making me run back and forth for every little thing they could think of, just being all around D-bags. I noticed a few of them had taken off their coats. When it came time for the bill, they asked me to get a pitcher of water for them to share before they left. So I did, and when I got back, they were all gone without paying. Awful, right? Except these absolute morons forgot they were wearing their jackets that said local high school wrestling team. You bet I immediately called the school. You bet I told everybody I talked to that the team had stolen from the restaurant. You bet when my step-uncle showed up and told them that they stole from his niece, that every single one of their lives were made more miserable for the rest of the season, I was okay with that. I also got paid for that check, and a 40% tip. Then, down in the comments, we have this story from Technos. It was the tennis team that tried that at my high school, but it was even worse. Their jackets had their last names on them, in letters so big even the sucky 1990 CCD cameras near the register could read. Oh, and the hostess went to school with them. The manager didn't even bother with the police or the school. She went for the nuclear option, grabbed a copy of the church phone book from her car and straight up called their grandmothers. "Hi, this is Sherry from church. Do you have the number of idiot's parents? He just dashed on his dinner tab here at the restaurant, and I can't find." "Oh, you will? Thank you. I'll expect him soon." That is absolutely brutal. Our next Reddit post is from Touch the Effing Frog. Today, I got a call from the school my 9-year-old attends asking to please come up to the school because my daughter was in trouble for vandalizing another child's property. This surprised me because my daughter is a bit of a goody two-shoes and never gets in trouble. So I dropped what I was doing and swung by the school to find my daughter sitting in the principal's office grinning ear to ear. I was ushered in to take a seat. The principal immediately launched into a tirade about how my daughter had deliberately broken another girl's necklace and how unacceptable it was. Once he was finished, I turned to my daughter to hear her side of the story. Last year, my daughter saved up pocket money to buy best friend necklaces for her and this girl. I ordered them from wish.com for her. This year, the friendship went belly up when I discovered this girl was trying to extort her friends, including my daughter, into buying her expensive items on a kid's game with threats, backstabbing my daughter, and threatening anyone who dared play with her at lunch, so she was completely isolated. My daughter cut off contact and has been rebuilding her friendship circle, and all was going well until this little girl started repeatedly demanding that my daughter give her the other half of the friendship necklace so she could give it to someone else. The fact that we were the ones that bought the necklaces to begin with was apparently a minor irrelevant detail. My 18-year-old niece and nephew are very protective of their younger cousins and were quite upset for her, so they decided to offer her the opportunity for therapeutic destruction. Last weekend, they got out their tools and helped my daughter shatter the charm into 7 or 8 pieces with a hammer, some pliers, and had a great time. My daughter put the pieces of the charm in her jewelry box as a reminder of what fake friends can do to you. Anyway, apparently, this girl kept demanding the necklace every day, hassling her, so my daughter hatched a plan. She gathered up the pieces into a little bag, took them to school today to empty the bag in front of the girl, and told her she was welcome to the necklace as long as she likes jigsaw puzzles, but she'll probably need some glue. Apparently, the girl went red and stormed off to a teacher to say that my daughter had destroyed her necklace and my daughter was sent to the office. I couldn't keep a straight face and burst out laughing. You could see the vein in the principal's forehead pop out as he looked at me laughing. I pulled out my phone, showed him my purchase history to confirm that we bought the necklaces and my daughter is perfectly within her rights to destroy her own property if she so wishes. He finally dismissed us and my daughter skipped back to class laughing hysterically. My niece and nephew are quite proud and planning to take my daughter out for ice cream this weekend to celebrate her standing up for herself. Don't you just love it when teachers and principals just automatically assume that one student is right and doesn't even bother to ask what the other student has to say? Our next Reddit post is from Christy's here. I lived in a corporate relocation apartment for 3 months while relocating for a job. I started getting collection calls for the previous occupant almost immediately. They called multiple times a day. It would wake up my kids during naps, after bedtime, weekends, you name it. I started by politely letting them know I wasn't the person they were looking for. Nicely, rudely, begging, you name it. They were incredibly rude and refused to tell me their names, name of their supervisor, etc. I was at my wit's end. After one particularly nasty encounter, I snapped. I started Googling their corporate officers, etc. I found that the CEO and CFO had very unusual names and quickly discovered they had publicly listed phone numbers. Yes, it was not a huge bank, and this was early 2000s before people were exclusively using cell phones. This was approximately 8 p.m. on a Sunday night. I called each number explaining that since I kept receiving collection calls from their company in spite of not being the person that they sought, every time they called me, I would call them. I left my phone number and name and hung up. Not even 10 minutes later, I got a call from their IT department asking for all the pertinent info. Who the customer was, my name and how to spell it. I never got a call from them again. I hope someone got fired. OP, you were way too polite about it. You should have just forwarded the collection calls to the CEO himself. Then the CEO's own employees would be calling their CEO to hassle him about paying up. Yeah, someone would pay all right. Our next Reddit post is from 5frogmargin. About 5 years ago, I saw someone lose their smartphone in real time. I was driving behind her and saw it fly off the top of her car on a busy one-lane highway. It was a little dangerous, but I pulled over, waited for a break in traffic, and darted out to grab the phone. It was miraculously unharmed. Her background pic showed a 20-ish redhead and a boyfriend who looked like a suckier version of FaZe Banks. I kept driving around doing my errands until her phone rang, about 30 minutes later. I told her where the phone had flown off the roof, how I retrieved it, and mentioned she must have put it there while getting gas or something. Her response? Okay, could you bring it to me here in my town, 40 minutes away, please? I work at a pizza joint. That's nowhere near me. I'm in another town. You can pick it up here. I'll meet you at the Dunkin' Donuts. I can't drive all the way to your town. I don't know your town. Let's meet halfway at a popular restaurant. That's not even remotely halfway. That restaurant is still in your town. Wanna just pick it up later? I don't have time for this. And she puts the boyfriend on the phone. Dude, what's your effing problem? Give her back her phone already. This went on for a few minutes, boyfriend getting tougher and tougher. I have zero tolerance for this sucky behavior, so I hung up on them and shut off the phone. I was going to visit my grandfather the next day, so I kept the phone on me until then. When I got to my granddad's town, 2 hours away, I turned the phone on, called the girl's father, and told him everything. He was very apologetic, and I'm guessing it wasn't his first rodeo. I told him due to her rudeness and her boyfriend's thinly veiled threats, the phone could now be picked up at the local police station in my granddad's hometown. Her dad's response? Looks like she'll have a 3-hour drive both ways this weekend. Sorry again. Why would you be rude to someone who has possession of your $1,000 smartphone? What's stopping the person from just being like, you know what, never mind, I think I'll just sell it. Bye. Our next Reddit post is from Celestius. My country's trains have a slightly infamous issue with people wrongfully taking seats that have been reserved in advance. When you book a seat, and you always get to pick your seat when booking online, your name, or reservation number if you want to stay anonymous, gets displayed over your seat. There were some issues with the reservations not coming up properly, which eventually got resolved, but people got used to the chaos of having to duke it out to get your correct seat. In response, the railway company started introducing customer service agents. In reality, these staff are part ticket inspectors, part security. This story takes place about 1 week after these ticket agents were introduced. So I boarded my train, returning to the city I live in after visiting my family for the weekend. The train was about halfway along its route, and there were a lot of empty seats. This is important. When I arrived at my seat, my name was above it. I found it occupied by a dude about halfway through a 6-pack of beer. I told him that was my seat and asked if he could move to one of the many unoccupied seats on the carriage. He refused and started cursing me out about it, saying he got there first and I could sit in one of the unoccupied seats. Generally being a bit of a bastard, throwing his empty cans out into the aisle. At this point, I could have given one of the customer service guys a hit up and have them persuade the guy to move to one of the empty seats. But honestly, that didn't feel satisfying enough. Cue petty revenge. Looking above his head, I could see that the seat next to him was booked from 3 stops down the line. I also knew that 2 stops down the line was when most commuters got on the train. I plonked myself down in the other pre-booked seat directly next to this dude rather than sitting in one of the unreserved seats. This douchebag in my seat settled back down with his cheap beer and started blasting music from his phone. 2 stops down the line, this train fills up completely. Standing room only from then on. The stop after that, the lady who booked the seat I was currently sitting in got on. I explained the situation to her, and together we grabbed one of the customer service dudes. I got my seat, the lady got her seat, and douchebag got to stand outside the pisser for the 2 hours left on the journey. So this guy had to stand while drunk on a moving train while smelling the bathroom? That couldn't have been very pleasant for him. Our next Reddit post is from Captain Trick. When I was 16, I took 10th grade in an art school. Mondays and Fridays were spent doing regular schoolwork, and the rest of the week was pure art heaven. There were 3 workshops, and you would dedicate yourself to one of them for the whole year. There was clothing design, more general design, and animation. I was in animation with all the geeks. At one point, the school was commissioned by a new section at a hospital. I do believe it was the children's section, but I'm not sure. To decorate their new hallways, and the prompt we got from them was the red thread. We were always told from the get-go that we would not be paid or even allowed to show up for the reception because that was only for the important people in town. So think mayors, doctors, CEOs, and all that lame stuff. Now, when you ask someone to do you a favor and have the nerve to have an attitude about it as well, and the someone you ask the favor of is an entire school full of artistic 16 to 18-year-olds in the mid-2000s, you are in deep trouble. We took the red thread theme very, very, very seriously. It wasn't even something we talked about across the workshops, but the entire week you could feel the resentment hang in the air, and we used that resentment to fuel our creativity. We spent a week making nightmare fuel art. Every single one of us. The clothing designers made nurse outfits caked in blood with red thread stitched into the white fabric and took knives to the skirts to shred it. Even got a morphine bag and filled it with fake blood and attached it to one of the costumes. The designers made horrific sculptures of broken anatomy, twisting in pain, and silent screams. The animation students, aka my crowd, did all kinds of crazy stuff. I made an abstract painting with a friend where we attached plaster to the canvas to make it look like it was oozing blood and pus. Every single piece of art looked like it came straight from Silent Hill, but every one of them had a red thread pulsing through the disgusting artwork, so we did what we were told. We had the artwork delivered, and we never heard from the hospital. Not even a thank you note or anything, lol. I think what I appreciate the most is that the teachers and the headmaster of our school just let us do what we wanted and seemed to accept that this collab was a complete disaster. This hospital was rude to a bunch of edgy teens and expected them to just comply? How stupid can you be? Our next Reddit post is from Alex saying that. So I work in this small family-owned office that runs 24/7. There's about 25 employees total, but in the office there's only like 12 of us. The rest work off-site. There's a woman who works here, we'll call her Jill. Jill is almost 40 and has been here about 10 years. For reference, I've been here just over 4 years. Since I've been hired, and from what I hear for her entire employment, she has never agreed to switch shifts with anyone. Not once. Not a single time has she ever done anyone a favor, no matter what. Yet, she has no issue constantly asking other people to switch shifts with her. A year into my employment, my brother needed emergency surgery and I begged her to cover my shift the next day, and all she said was, "Sunday's my only day to sleep in, sorry." I never forgot that. Whatever, she's not obligated to switch shifts. It's her prerogative if she wants to be universally disliked by our entire office. Anyway, Jill got pregnant about 7 months ago, completely accidentally, and was actually quite freaked out about it for a while. She's pretty much been nauseous her entire pregnancy, and even keeps a trash can next to her desk just in case she can't make it to the bathroom. Yesterday, she was feeling really sick, and around 12:30 p.m. she asked our boss if she could leave early. He told her she could leave, if she could get someone to agree to finish her shift. Our shifts are mainly 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., then 3 to 11 p.m., and 11 to 7 a.m., with periodic split shifts thrown in as needed. I was working morning yesterday, scheduled to leave at 3 p.m., and she was scheduled until 7 p.m. The only other person who could have stayed for her had plans right after his shift, so I was her only option. She waited until 2:45 p.m. and then sauntered up to my desk, puppy dog eyes fully engaged, and asked me to stay for the rest of her shift because she was feeling really ill. Now, I'm on Reddit a lot, and I never forgot that post about the sucky manager refusing to allow her employees to be at her dying son's bedside. There's a line in that text exchange that I loved and have been waiting for the perfect moment to use, and this was it. I swivel to face her, look her right in the eyes, trail my eyes down to her bulging, unplanned pregnant stomach, and pointedly say, "A lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part," and just swivel back and continue working without another word. It was glorious. Her face instantly dropped. It looked like someone farted into her mouth the way it twisted. She didn't say a thing and just waddled away back to her desk, absolutely furious. 15 minutes later, I stand up and loudly announce my departure and that if anyone needs me, I'll be at home taking a nap. That was r/Pettyrevenge, and if you like this video, then please hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit content every single day.